Britain's economy is broken, and it's not just inflation or politics. The system that built its strength no longer works for the people who keep it running. For generations, Britain's economy was built on work that created value. Industries that forged, mined, and manufactured. Sectors such as steel, coal, textiles, and shipbuilding once defined communities, sustained families, and gave the country its global power. But over time, the balance shifted to something bigger. As factories closed, offices opened, the country moved from making things to managing things. The North, once the heartbeat of production, saw silence spread through its warehouses and yards. The South, especially London, became the financial capital of Europe, attracting talent and wealth. The result wasn't growth for all, but division. The same shift that made the city richer left towns across the country without purpose or pride. And that imbalance still defines Britain today. And while the North struggled to rebuild, the South's skyline kept rising, leaving the question, who really benefits when an entire region is left behind? When the industrial base collapsed in the 1980s, it wasn't just jobs that disappeared, but also workplaces, such as the steelworks in Sheffield, the shipyards in Sunderland, and the mines in Durham. They were communities in motion. As globalization moved production overseas, the government promised renewal, technology parks, service jobs, financial investment. But most of it never reached the towns that needed it. Instead, capital flowed toward London and the southeast, where infrastructure was stronger and profits came faster. Who benefited? The answer is clear. The wealthy South and corporate elites grew richer, while working families and industrial towns were left to pick up the pieces. The North lost its factories, the South gained skyscrapers, and the promise of a balanced economy became a slogan without substance. Today, Britain has a record number of employed people, but living standards are failing. In June to August 2025, the number of people aged 16 or over in employment in the UK was estimated at 34.22 million. People are working more, but earning less in real terms than they did a decade ago. Wages have stagnated, prices have climbed, and rent swallows more of every paycheck. The issue isn't just inflation, it's productivity. For years, Britain's productivity of how much each worker produces per hour has barely moved. Other nations adapted and surged ahead, while Britain fell behind, and without productivity, growth simply stopped. Many new jobs are low-paid and insecure, zero-hour contracts, part-time retail, and gig work. There is employment, but no stability. The economy looks busy, but the people powering it feel stuck. And as that frustration grows, so does the question, who really benefits from Britain's work anymore? The uncomfortable truth is that the gains didn't vanish, they shifted upwards. Corporate profits rose, executive bonuses returned, and the financial sector saw record growth while household savings collapsed. The system rewarded ownership, not labor. Those who held assets and property grew richer, even as real wages stagnated. In theory, a growing economy should make life easier, but in Britain, the opposite happened. Housing costs soared, energy bills doubled, food prices hit record highs, necessities turned into a financial strain, wages didn't keep up, and renters faced eviction risk. Mortgages climbed beyond reach, the gap between income and expenses widened, pushing millions into debt. What once felt middle class now feels precarious. Government support came and gave temporary relief, one-time payments, and promises of reform, but none of it addressed the real problem. Because the issue wasn't inflation alone, it was decades of underinvestment, leaving public systems weak and private costs unmanageable. Britain's cost of living crisis didn't appear overnight. It was built slowly, decision by decision, year by year. But what about its public services, the systems meant to protect and support the people hit hardest? Britain's public services once set the global standard. Today, they struggle to keep pace. NHS waiting lists have reached record highs, schools face teacher shortages, trains are cancelled daily, councils run out of money. The root cause is simple: austerity. Since 2010, spending cuts have been justified as necessary for fiscal health, but those cuts hollowed out the very systems that sustained daily life. Local governments lost funding, hospitals lost staff, the infrastructure aged without replacement. Meanwhile, private companies filled the gaps at a higher cost and lower accountability. Water firms polluted rivers while paying dividends. Train operators missed targets but raised fares. The public paid more, received less, and watched trust in institutions decline. When a nation's essential systems falter, economic growth loses meaning, because a strong GDP means nothing if basic services no longer work. And that same strain is clearest in housing, once a symbol of security, now a measure of how unequal Britain has become. Owning a home was once seen as security and stability, right? But now it's become a privilege. Britain's housing market has become a mirror of inequality itself, and in the South, property prices exploded, driven by speculation and investment. In the North, entire streets remain undervalued. The difference between postcode and prosperity has never been sharper. Younger generations are locked out completely. Deposits take years to save. Rent consumes over half the monthly income. Social housing supply fell while demand surged. And policies meant to stimulate the market only inflated it further. Housing used to be the foundation of wealth building. Now, it's the wall separating those who can from those who never will. But there's more to this story. If this helps you see the bigger picture, hit subscribe. In Britain, where money flows, opportunity follows, and for decades most of that money flowed south. Public investment in roads, rail, and innovation heavily favoured London and the southeast. Northern cities waited for projects that never came or arrived years late and over budget. Promises of levelling up turned into slow bureaucracy and partial funding. This uneven investment created a feedback loop. Areas with poor infrastructure attracted fewer businesses. Fewer businesses meant fewer jobs. Fewer jobs meant less tax revenue and less justification for investment. Meanwhile, London continued to attract both domestic and foreign capital. This created a concentration of opportunity so dense that the rest of the country began to orbit around it. Britain no longer has a national economy. It has a London economy, with satellites attached. But as trade faltered and investment stalled, households felt the impact in rising prices and stagnant wages. And it's shocking. Brexit was sold as a path to sovereignty and renewal, but for many businesses, it became a logistical nightmare. Trade friction increased, exports dropped, and labour shortages were spread across industries that relied on EU workers. For small companies, the burden of paperwork and the cost of compliance became overwhelming. Larger firms moved operations elsewhere. Foreign investors saw uncertainty and looked away. Supporters argued it was a long-term shift, a short-term pain for future independence. But the recovery never came. Britain now trades less efficiently with its closest market and faces global competition without the safety net it once had. Brexit didn't break the economy alone, but it deepened the cracks that were already there. And you won't believe what happened when talent left and skills vanished. A strong economy needs skilled workers, but Britain's education system hasn't kept up with its labour needs. Apprenticeships declined, technical training lost funding, university debt discouraged ambition. While London draws global graduates, smaller cities struggle to retain their talent. The result is a workforce unbalanced between overqualified graduates in low-paying jobs and industries desperate for practical skills. For years, policy has focused on getting more people into university, not on matching education with opportunity. And now, Britain produces some of the world's brightest minds only to see them leave for better prospects abroad. An economy that cannot develop and retain its own talent cannot sustain growth. It can only import it or lose it. Governments come and go, but one thing always remains: debt and deficit. Britain spends more than it earns. Year after year, that's true. The national debt now exceeds 100% of GDP. Interest payments alone cost billions. Yet every government insists on stability while borrowing to cover shortfalls. Austerity didn't fix it, spending sprees didn't fix it, and tax changes rarely balance the scales. The issue isn't just how much is spent, it's where and why. When investment goes short-term headlines instead of long-term growth, the debt becomes a symptom of stagnation, not expansion. But debt isn't the problem by itself. The lack of return on that debt is, which is far greater than we think. Britain's economic model still assumes growth will trickle down, but it doesn't. Profits stay concentrated, wages stay flat, and investment stays localized. When one region thrives while another declines, the economy becomes both unequal and unstable. Growth in London can't offset the collapse in the north. Rising stock markets can't disguise falling living standards. A nation divided by geography, class, and opportunity cannot sustain long-term prosperity. Every imbalance deepens the next. Every cut makes the repair harder. Until policy shifts from management to rebuilding, Britain will remain caught in this cycle, wealthy on paper, but struggling in reality. But how do we fix it? Fixing a broken economy isn't about slogans or short-term boosts. It's about long-term reinvestment in people and places. That means rebuilding local industries around renewable energy, technology, and advanced manufacturing. It means infrastructure that connects cities to each other, not just London. It means education that leads to real jobs, not just degrees. And it means public services are funded to function, not just survive. A strong economy doesn't rely on one region or one industry. It relies on everyone having the means to contribute and the opportunity to benefit. Britain's economy isn't beyond repair, but only the courage to rebuild what was lost and balance what was never equal can turn recovery into reality.